So, part two of my cancer journey was pretty much all of 2020. Yes, COVID 2020. And my timeline here is super muddled, so I might have some stuff mixed up, but you'll still get the general idea. I had my rectum removed and was given a temporary poop bag on January 31st, 2020. And for the month of February, I was in the hospital more than I was home. I had my poop bag, which was honestly the easiest part of all of this. I also had a urinary catheter because I often get what's called lazy bladder after anesthesia, which means my bladder just decides to stop doing its job and refuses, and I mean refuses to work. But with my poop bag and my golden purse, as they call them, we all thought I was going to be fine, just fine. But then after being home about a week, I started having excruciating pain in my backside, which we began referring to as rectal pain and pressure. It felt like all my body wanted to do was poop and poop desperately, but obviously that wasn't going to happen since my poop pipes were not even connected. I spent hours and hours and hours in the bathroom knowing that nothing would come out, but somehow getting some relief. It was so bad that after being home for about 5 days, I ended up back in the ER, and it was determined that I had an infected abscess back there where they had just done all that work. So they gave me my new friend, Duncan the Drain, and they had me stay for a little R&R at the good old Miriam Hospital. So Duncan hung around for about 5 days or so, and then Dr. Vries felt like Duncan, had done enough work, so he just sort of yanked him out one day and then sent me home the next. But guess who was back in the ER 5 days later? So we did the whole thing all over again. But this time they let me bring Duncan number 2 home. So now I was dragging 3 bags around with me, my poop bag, my golden purse, and Duncan. I looked like Frankenstein. At one point in my hospital stay, I was put on the orthopedic floor, which is sort of like a second GI unit, and I felt horrible that ortho patients and their kids had to see me wandering around the halls with bags and tubes everywhere. But Duncan II eventually came out and I was sent home. Again. But guess who was back in the ER about 5 days later? So we did the whole thing over again. I remember sitting in my hospital room sobbing about the pain and pressure to the GI surgery fellow that had been seeing my case and saying, there must be something else you guys can give me besides more opiates. What if we try some muscle relaxers? And so we did, and I got better, sort of. So during all of this, I kept having something called an exam under anesthesia done, which means they knock me out to explore my butt. At one point in time, my pelvic floor muscles were so tight that they couldn't even get a finger through them. I was told that this was pretty unusual, and by this point, I was so used to being told that I had fallen off the bell curve that it no longer surprised me. Dr. Vries, my surgeon, was very confused by my pain and discomfort. He kept suspecting that there was a leak in there, but he couldn't find one, until finally I had a scan done without a drain in, and there it was, a big, ugly leak. See, the drain had masked the leak because, well, that's what a drain does. It gives excess fluid a place to go. And so the fluid that was coming out of the leak was leaving through the drain. But once there was no more drain, he could actually see the leak. So he went back in, filleted my new rectum open, stapled it down, and I was good to go. Another little fun fact about my body is that it is allergic to adhesive. Now, this may not seem like a big deal, but when you have an appliance that's stuck to your body with adhesive in order to catch your poop, this situation is a bit of a problem. We tried to do a skin patch test to see which brand of appliance would bother me the least, but I couldn't keep any of them on long enough to get any good data. So we ended up going with the one that seemed to cause the least issue. Plus, I figured that the ileostomy was only temporary and I can put up with anything for a little while. Let me tell you that by the time my poop bag was reversed, my skin was so red, so raw, and so irritated that you could literally see the remnants of the square appliance on my skin for weeks. It was so painful and so itchy and so miserable. But again, it was only temporary, or so I thought. The other fun fact is about my pelvic floor. Now, it is not uncommon for women to have issues with their pelvic floor after childbirth, or for a man or a woman to have trouble after having radiation to the area. Well, my pelvic floor was pissed, and it was what was causing a good percentage of all that rectal pain I had mentioned earlier. So I got referred to a urogynecologist. I honestly didn't even know that this kind of doctor existed, but they sure do. Dr. Reardon was my guy. He was so kind and so patient and let me whine and moan about the pain. After a quick exam, he confirmed that my pelvic floor was basically in a near constant spasm and suggested some trigger point injections transvaginally. Yep, you heard that right. The doc took a big needle, stuck the thing way up in there, and gave me a bunch of injections. And yep, it hurts as bad as it sounds like it might. And I got to have it done not only once, but twice. And then I got to start using a vaginal suppository of Valium because, yep, my girl parts were so freaked out that they required Valium all on their own. So to summarize, I'm allergic to adhesive. I've had injections in my vagina. I've had multiple drains put in my butt, and I had my new rectum filleted. And that, my friends, was my spring and summer of 2020. Oh, plus that whole COVID thing. To be honest, COVID was helpful for me in a weird way. It allowed me to do telehealth, which allowed me to keep my business up and running and my family housed, clothed, and eating. It allowed me to have a bit more time to heal, and it prevented me from realizing just how bad things were with my poop pipes, which in turn allowed me the emotional time and space to really try to make this whole situation work. My family and I were blessed enough not to lose anyone to COVID, otherwise this part of my story would look very different. And while I am so sad that COVID was ever a thing, there were some positives for me given the nature of my specific circumstances. And that, my friends, is all for this week. Thank you for listening, and please remember to get your colonoscopies and other screenings right on time. And please remember to mind your light and that you, yes, you deserve to feel the love and warmth that you bestow onto others.